When the Fair Housing Act was voted on and passed in 1968, it was a landmark piece of legislation. Why? People had been trying for a long time before that. It was in and out of committee. It was very contentious. It was the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King a week before the bill passed that really provided the impetus to do it, because all of a sudden a lot of people who were in opposition began to recognize, you know, this is a real problem. Maybe I didn't think it was a problem because it wasn't affecting me, but it really is affecting me, because if we're unfair to anybody, ultimately we're unfair to everybody.
If one says that I am not good enough to live next door to him, if one says that I am not good enough to eat at a lunch counter, or to have a good, decent job, or to go to school with him merely because of my race, he is saying consciously or unconsciously that I do not deserve to exist.
We got the worst, nastiest mail we got on any piece of legislation on the Fair Housing Act. And we were unable to move it. We ran into this. First, there was a big issue. It got to be called Mrs. Murphy's boarding house. And we shouldn't subject Mrs. Murphy to this.
They were frightened. They were full of the stereotypical kinds of things. They felt bad people would come to the home.
They assassinated Martin Luther King. You can imagine what that was like. Horrible, horrible, horrible. During this time, the city started exploding. Man, oh man, it was fires and everything all over town. And we got the bill passed anyway. Probably because he was killed, we got the bill out of the committee. But we knew we had a lot of work to do to reunite our country and get back on a solid track. No question about it.
It became really very clear to a progressive president like Lyndon Johnson that the federal government needed to create a focal point for thinking about the cities, thinking about civil rights, thinking about economic justice, thinking about concentrated poverty.
Word came from Capitol Hill that Congress had passed and sent to the White House the Civil Rights Act of 1968. Included in the measure was a landmark open housing bill, which, when fully effective, would forbid discrimination in approximately 80% of all housing offered for rent or for sale in the United States.
Now with this bill, the voice of justice speaks again. It proclaims that fair housing for all human beings who live in this country is now a part of the American way of life.
They say law is a good teacher. I think the Fair Housing Act has taught a couple of generations of Americans, at least leaders, that this is part of the American dream, to end harsh racial segregation.
But as a HUD secretary, I had to wonder how many people in America who didn't have a lawyer friend helping them get resettled or work near a job would not have had the resources to know what to do. I mean, it seems so elementary to have fair housing, but HUD is out there day in and day out trying to enforce our fair housing laws and trying to make sure that people get treated fairly when they go rent or buy.
I do not exaggerate when I say that the proudest moments of my presidency have been times such as this, when I have signed into law the promises of a century.
I still have a dream that one day men will no longer see racial integration as a problem, but as an opportunity to participate in the beauty of diversity.